Good evening. Tonight we're going to deal with the mitzvah of mezuzah, which we're going to discover is more than just a mitzvah. It's actually a mitzvah with benefits, a mitzvah with great merit of protection that comes with it. Now, why am I talking about mezuzah tonight? And I'm going to give you two reasons. One's the parasha of the week, and the other is the date, today's date. Parasha of the week. Well, actually, two. Last week's parasha. That was the first paragraph of Shema. והיו הדברים האלה אשר נכנסים בצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. So these words that I command you shall be upon your heart. You write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. So that's the mitzvah of mezuzah. That first paragraph of the Shema must be written on a parchment scroll, and it must then be um, rolled up and put on the doorposts of the home. So that is the first mention of the mitzvah of mezuzah, and that's, as you can see, bottom left from the portion of Vayit Chanan, which is a parasha that we just read this past Shabbos. And then this week, Akev, same. In the second paragraph of the Shema, שמתם את דברי אלה על לבבכם ועל נפשכם, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך וישעריך. Place these words upon your heart and upon your soul. You shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. Identical words. And this is how we learn that a second paragraph of the Shema must be included in the mezuzah scroll. So it's Shema Yisrael and Vayam Shema, the two portions. I'll come back to their content a little bit later tonight. So in terms of the parsha context, it's understandable that we're dealing with that mitzvah, but it goes beyond that. Today's date, 15th of Av. Okay, now 15th of Av is a holiday on the calendar. That's a different story, I think, which was a topic of Ashir a year ago, two, but I remember having done it. But it's also a kind of important threshold moving into the new year. We're now counting down to Rosh Hashanah, basically. And Tisha B'Av is over, and now that's the next major milestone. And the creation of the world actually didn't happen on the first of Tishrei. Creation of the world happened on the 25th of Elul. And if you count back 40 days from there, you're going to end up with the 15th of Av. So that's kind of, we go into the mode. Why is 40 days relevant? 40 days is relevant because it talks about the creation of a baby in utero. So a baby is formed and reaches kind of human shape at the age of 40. So 40 is creation, is incubation, so to speak. So the incubation of the world happened on the 15th of Av. And we actually get into Rosh Hashanah mode, and there's a very interesting teaching which comes to us from Baal Shem Tov, and he quotes Achi Hashiloni, who was his master, and he says, from the 15th of Av until Rosh Hashanah, we greet one another with the words Ktiva Vachatima Tova. And that has great merit. And the Baal Shem Tov continues that he was taught that the more you use that phrase, the more good advocates you create in heaven who are going to speak in your favor. Of course, Rosh Hashanah is when judgment happens, and we say K'tiva v'chatima tova. Each instance of wishing people K'tiva v'chatima tova actually creates kind of a good angel, a good advocate that's going to speak up for us and defend us in the heavenly judgment. So we're really kind of in judgment mode already. We know Elul is that month when we're very careful, but it's not just Elul. Fascinating gematria brought down that parallel that kind of creates that K'tiv v'chatima tova, and the 15th of Av. 15th of Av, Chamisha Sa'ar B'Av in Hebrew on the right-hand side of the screen. K'tiv v'chatima, good inscription and sealing, as we know. And if you add the letters of the three words, you end up with an identical total being 928. So there's a kind of a link between wishing K'tiv v'chatima tova already starting from today's date. So it's kind of an important day. Now, what's the connection with mezuzah? One of the mitzvot that one is particularly careful with during the month of Elul, preparing for the judgment, is the mitzvah of mezuzah, which is why, well, what can you do? The mezuzah is up on the walls. So how do you perform the mitzvah of mezuzah? You moved into your home 20, 30 years ago, or longer, and at that time you got mezuzahs, you placed them correctly, you had them checked. So the way you fulfill the mitzvah is by checking your mezuzot during that month of Elul. In a sense, that's a way of performing that mitzvah. So, what is so, what should I say, amazing, particular about the mitzvah of mezuzah? It's the protection that it affords us. And well known that, on the outside of the parchment scroll, you can actually see it on the outside. And if you have a clear mezuzah case, the letters Shin Daled Yud. That's Hashem's name, Shin Daled Yud. Also happens to be an acronym for the expression Shomer Daltot Yisrael, which means guards the doors of Israel. So the mitzvah of mezuzah has that merit, that protective merit of guarding our homes, and not only when you're in the home, but in fact guarding us and protecting us even when we are outside of the house. So that is already brought in a very early source in halacha called a tur. The tur is actually the one that divided what we know as a Shulchan Aruch into four sections, known as Orach Chaim, Yoreh De'ah, Even HaEzer, and Choshen Mishpat. That actually was a division made by the Tur years before the Shulchan Aruch was written by Yosef Karo. And in the Tur, he writes as follows. He says, just read the Shema, and you'll know that there's protection from mezuzah. So if you read that second paragraph of Shema, of course, and then what do you find? That right after the words that we saw before, write them on your doorposts. It then says, "Leman yirbu yemechem v'mei v'nechem," in order that your days and the days of your children may be increased. So you're being promised long life in exchange for the performance of this mitzvah. And then very interestingly, he says, and greater still, the house is protected through it. Greater still, the house is protected through it. Now, the Beit Yosef, that Yosef Karo, he's the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, but before he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, he actually wrote glosses on the Tur. He actually wrote notes on the Tur, and they actually printed in the editions of the Tur that we have. So in the commentary of Beit Yosef, he says, what do you mean? Long life and greater still, your house is protected through it? What do you mean? I mean, there's no greater bracha than long life. So what does it mean? You have long life, and the house is protected through it. And he says, yes, because the different kinds of miracles. Long life, says the Beit Yosef, is a hidden miracle. The protection of the home is a revealed miracle. And he points out that people who dwell in houses without a mezuzah are sometimes harmed, while those who dwell in a house with a mezuzah are saved. And we there's so many stories, and I mean, it's not very positive to talk about it in that way. We talk about the protection the mezuzah affords. But there are often cases where there's hardship going on in a home, in a family. When you check the mezuzot, you find that there are problems. And sadly, there was just a story in Ashkelon. this past Friday, a young child went missing a couple of days overnight. And I mean, he was a young kid, and the entire community was up in arms. And when the Chabad rabbi heard of it, he arrived at the house, took the mezuzahs down, and found that the words "Uvelech techavaderech," and when you go on your way, where there was a problem there, it was rubbed out or whatever it is. So we hear these stories all the time. The good story is that he obtained new mezuzahs and the child was home before Shabbos, which got an amazing story. I actually just heard about it today. Heard the story today. So now, so we know that mezuzah was that kind of protection. So the Beit Yosef says, long life, as it's a hidden miracle. You don't realize the connection with the mezuzah, but unfortunately, when the mezuzah isn't good and things happen, then you realize that the mezuzah protects you in a very revealed way, and that is quite amazing. But what we discover is that there was a story in Ma'alot. Remember, the story in Ma'alot happened 70s, sure. There was a terrible terrorist attack, and they came in and they took kids in school prisoners. I recall after that, the mezuzot in that school were checked, and they kind of really needed attention. So we know that connection. We realize the protection that mezuzot offer. What I'd like to share with you now is that the protection of the mezuzah is not just the merit of the mitzvah. There's something inherent in the scroll that offers protection. And it's a famous story that's brought down in the Jerusalem Talmud about Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and a nobleman, I think a Roman nobleman. The story goes as follows. Artaban says to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that's Rabbi Yehuda the prince, sends him a precious pearl, says, send me something equally valuable in return. And Rabbi sends him a mezuzah. Artaban says, no. This is not, this is not equity. I sent you something priceless. You're sending me something, worth a cheap coin. Those were back in the days when the mezuzah was a cheap coin. I would say the mezuzah today is quite expensive. Rebbe answers, and he says, neither your possessions nor mine can equal it. Moreover, you sent me something I must guard. I sent you something that guards you while you sleep. So Rebbe says the power of the mezuzah, and I think about this. Artaban is not Jewish. He's a Roman nobleman, and he doesn't have the mitzvah. So it's not the merit of fulfilling the mitzvah of mezuzah that is now protecting him and not standing in good stead. It's simply the mezuzah itself. In fact, the Talmud continues that there were some problems with the house, and I think it said that the house was possessed by some kind of an evil spirit, and Artaban actually affixed the mezuzah on the door, and the spirit went away. I don't know if he did it the way we do it on the right doorpost or whatever. Maybe he displayed it in a beautiful frame, or whatever the case may have been. He, the mezuzah did its trick and protected him. Does that mean we must not go and gift all our Gentile friends mezuzahs? And not necessarily. In fact, one should only give a person a mezuzah if you know that they're going to treat it with the right level of respect, which is why, for example, when you move home and you've got your mezuzahs there, and if somebody not Jewish is going to move in, you should take them down because you don't know what's going to happen with the mezuzahs. They might be just left there, and the contractors will come and knock them and put them in the bin. So you take them away. You got to make sure that the mezuzah is going to be treated with the respect that we believe that a mezuzah should be granted. But clearly, we see from the story is that the protection of mezuzah is not the merit of the mitzvah, but there's actually something in the mezuzah itself. There's another Talmudic kind of proof to this, which comes from the the Mishnah in Kalim. Mishnah in Kalim discusses what has the status of a vessel or not, and can it become susceptible to tuma, to impurity. So they discuss a staff that has a receptacle that can contain either pearls or a mezuzah. So it would seem that it was practice for people when they travel, when they walked on the road, to take mezuzahs with them. So there's this staff, and they've created a place to put a mezuzah in. And Tosfot Yom Tov actually says it's right there. It's possible that at the time of a Mishnah, people carried the mezuzah with them and regarded it as both a mitzvah and a protection. So he actually adds the word mitzvah. Now, a mitzvah, it wouldn't be, but protection it is. In fact, I know that the Rebbe told people to put a mezuzah in their motor car. If they were worried, if they had an accident and they were concerned about the road. So that was one of the pieces of advice that was commonly given, is put a mezuzah in your motor car. Also put some holy books in your motor car and a pushka, because having a pushka in the car means that you can do the mitzvah of tzedakah, not while you're driving, please, but you can do it in your car and turn the car into a place of mitzvahs. But there is the mezuzah. So it would appear that the mezuzah has inherent protective powers. The Zohar relates it to Egypt. In Egypt, there was the great danger of the plague of the firstborn, and Hashem skipped over the homes that had the blood of the Korban Pesach on the doorposts. So there's kind of a link between Hashem kind of protecting a home, and the doorpost of the home. And so we're particularly careful with this mitzvah, more than others. And I think it's one that rates is very highly observed among Jewish people, definitely higher than having a kosher home or keeping Shabbos, is having mezuzah on a door. That's how we identify as Jewish people, but it's more than identification. I recall reading the story of the Gentile who says he wants a mezuzah on his door. He said, "What's it for?" So protection. Hashem is going to look after your home. You won't have robberies. Anyway, he puts the mezuzah on his door. 2 days later, he is back with the mezuzah and is returning it. What's wrong? He says, no, maybe it protected me. But every single night the doorbell rang, there were tzedakah collectors. I don't want that thing on my door. Anyway, how does the mezuzah go up? This is a very interesting debate. Now, you may be familiar with the argument between Rashi and his grandson Rabbeinu Tam in terms of what's the correct sequence of the tefillin and how the portions are placed inside of the head tefillin and written on the parchment of the hand tefillin. But there's actually debate between these two rabbis, grandfather, grandson, actually. Rashi was the grandfather, Rabbeinu Tam is the grandson, as to what is the correct way of putting up the mezuzah. To your left is Rashi, and his opinion is that a mezuzah goes absolutely vertically in the doorpost. Rabbeinu Tam disagreed, and he was of the opinion that the mezuzah has to be actually lying horizontally on your doorpost, which is something that we are totally unaccustomed to seeing. Actually, we see neither. What we do is a very interesting practice that is not normally done in halacha, and that is we do like neither or like both. Like normally, when there's an argument between halachic opinions, you'll find that there is a halachic ruling. There's a subsequent, a later decider who says, no, we actually rule like Rashi, or we actually rule like Rabbeinu Tam, and you do it this way or you do it that way. But our custom is to put the mezuzah, Ashkenazi practice, Sfardim do it differently. Our custom is to put the mezuzah on an angle, on a slant, which is kind of compromising, right? In halacha. Very unusual practice that we don't have an actual final decision, and that we kind of do something which is neither or both or whatever it is. If you think about it, um, that is a very important place to engage in compromise. At the opening of your door, you want to have a reminder that this home will be blessed through compromise. It will not be his way or her way. It's something negotiated that works for both. I want you to look at the word mezuzah. Mezuzah, fascinating idea. What do we have here? Mezuzah, of course, reading right to left, begins with a mem. Mem is 40. Remember, we discussed the creation of a baby. Talmud in Niddah says that 40 days before the child is formed, there is a heavenly voice that rings out and says, um, this one and that one are the shidduch. Right? So the shidduchim are made already, and that's the concept of bashert, where we say that these two individuals are, are destined for each other. It's because it's actually decided upon before. Then we have the word mem, then we have zu and ze. Zu and ze means this and that, this and this. One's the masculine, one's in the feminine. So in the mezuzah that comes in, you have this idea that in this home lives hopefully a happily married couple, as was decreed upon 40 days before they were even formed. But what's going to happen here is we're going to amalgamate, we're going to make one out of zu and ze, out of him and her. Powerful concept that your home has to be a place of compromise, of negotiation, and of reaching healthy living standards by incorporating the desires of all who reside in the home and accommodating them all. And that's what you kind of, when you walk into the house and you touch the mezuzah and you realize, hey, this is at a slant. It's not like Rashi. It's not like Rabbeinu Tam, not Rashi, not Rabbeinu Tam. It's both, or it's neither. But it's an accommodation that's been reached. As I showed you earlier, the mezuzah inside comprises two portions of the Shema, the first and the second, the one that we read last Shabbos and the one we're going to read this Shabbos. What is the subject, the theme of the first portion of the Shema? Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. And it's all positive, it's all love, it's all warm. There's no mention of anything harsh or any punishment. It's all about positive mitzvot that stem from the love of God. The second paragraph of the Shema talks about reward and consequences. And it says, Vayayim Shamot Tishma'u, if you listen to the commandments, then yeah, you'll have rain in its right time and there'll be crops. But if you fail to observe, and then there's the consequences are listed in a very serious, harsh way. So what do we have in the second paragraph of Shema? We have Gevura, we have Din, we have judgment, we have the fear of God as a way of serving Hashem, fear of punishment. First paragraph of Shema, we have love of Hashem. And they're two opposite ways of serving God, but they are complementary. You don't serve Hashem just with the one way or with the other. It's going to be a combination of ahava and yirah, of love and fear, very healthily kind of synthesized and amalgamated and integrated is what I'm looking for, and that's another message of what's in the mezuzah as you come into your house, that integration of opposite emotions. And yes, there will be times when, the one partner in the home feels in a particular way, and the other feels in a very different way. And we got to integrate it. We got to bring it together. We got to make it into one to make it work. So that's the mezuzah that's on the slant as a sign as we come in. So the mezuzah protects us from the outside danger. The mezuzah also instructs us, informs us as to what should be going on inside our home. And as we stand now, very rolling towards the end of the year, Rosh Hashanah, with 45 days to go, 2 weeks to Rosh Chodesh, and then another month of Elul. It's time to get ready. And one of the things you want to think about is having your mezuzahs, also to film is part of that custom, but having your mezuzahs checked. And I'm going to end this shiur by using this a greeting for the first time. And may this be the first good angel and what was the word they used? Good, pleader for me on high. I wish you k'tiva v'chatima tova. I wonder if it multiplies by a number of people who are listening live and by those who are going to watch it later on YouTube. That the more of those, good angels that are going to, advocate for me in a positive way, the better. Have a good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thanks very much, Rabbi. Take